2022 is nearly halfway over and life is looking as raggedy as a versus between Omarion and Mario. What are we doing with life? But never fear, I'm going to brighten the mood up a little bit because today we are talking about the 20 best albums of 2022 so far. I've listened to 96 albums so far. Let's check out the best. What up, players? Once again, thank you for joining me, your boy Edward, for another edition of the Soul and Stereo Sessions right here on the YouTubes. You know how it goes. Of course, before we get started, I gotta throw in cheap plugs. If you're here and you haven't already, this is what I need you to do. I need you to hit like, I need you to hit share, and I need you to hit subscribe, because we need to show this video some love. Let's get those algorithms popping. And you already know it's going to be hot. That's why you're here. You know it's going to be dope. So get that going and let's get started. So today, as I come from you from Palatial Soul and Stereo Studios in the very hot Birmingham, Alabama, good Lord, y'all, we're going to talk about the 20 best albums of 22 so far. But before we go, let me establish a few ground rules. Number one, this album list is not an album ranking list. That'll come in December when we do the whole shebang. Right now, I'm just talking about the 20 best, no order. So if you see your fave before something that you don't like, don't get mad. I'm shouting out everybody. We're on the same playing field as of right now. Secondly, you know me, you know how Soul and Stereo goes. This is all about album quality, not quantity, because quantity is what gets us in trouble in the first place. And let me describe what I'm saying. So this is a list of the best albums in terms of quality, not in terms of hype. If you want to see a bunch of albums that are hyped up, I got an idea for you. Go to Twitter, because they just gassing up everything over there. Instead of that, come here. We're going to talk about the best of the best. And it's very likely you haven't even heard of some of these artists. That's cool. That's what Soul and Stereo is here for, to put you on. So if you haven't checked these artists out, you should, because it's got the Soul and Stereo stamp of quality on it. You know, I don't just give that away. So let's get started. The 20 best albums, 2022. Starting us off is Benny the Butcher with Tana Talk 4. Now, Tana Talk 3 was his kind of breakout moment as far as mainstream attention and eyeballs are considered. I would consider this one the moment where he solidifies his spot. Look, if you're going to remake 10 Crack Commandments, you better do it right. And he did it right. This is a great album to me, one of the better ones of the year. And although my criticism of Griselda's albums, and we'll get to that a little bit later on, is that they all, you know, you heard one, you heard them all, they're all kind of the same. This one is a different vibe somewhat from his earlier release. And it's got one of the better songs of the year with the J. Cole collaboration, and just that consistent energy and charisma that Benny brings to his music. This one is one to watch. Coming in next is King LJ PTSD. Shout out to Birmingham, and shout out to the Birmingham artists that are doing the thing. You might not know his name if you aren't from the city, but trust me, his music is one that will resonate with you. If you're a fan of Kendrick Lamar's album and kind of this narrative that's talking about a deeper look at the psyche of our culture, this album does that so well. King LJ is able to kind of take storytelling to a next level and do that by exploring the emotional state of a black man. He dives deep into the psyche of what's going on in our society and internally what goes on with us. but he does it in such a compelling way. Shout out to Akil Pratt for his production. It really helps set the tone for this. And lyrically, this is about maybe as good as I've heard, LJ. Seriously, make sure you check out this album. It's on all streaming platforms. It's one you don't want to miss, and I have no problem putting it in probably my top 10 so far. I know y'all gonna scream bias, but if you know me, I'm not biased. I'll throw anybody under the bus, even my own cousin, because his album ain't on this list. Up next is our boy Eric Roberson's Lessons. Oh, Arrow, shout out to Arrow. If you followed Soul and Stereo last year, you know that probably my pick for the top R&B song of 2021 was the title track, Lessons. So it's no surprise that his album would be one of the better albums of 2022. I was just talking in the Soul and Stereo Cypher over on Facebook. Go check that out. Join it and have fun with the rest of us. About R&B in 2022 and how the art of love is lost. Remember Midnight Love? That would never work today because y'all don't know how to love. All y'all know how to do is beg for nudes and DMs. But this album really is a celebration of love, and it takes kind of a journey of going from dating through matrimony pretty much. And this album tells that story, and it does it so well. We all know Arrow. We know what he can bring to the table when it comes to writing, production, and just vibe. And I don't mean sleepy, stupid, moany vibes. I mean vibes of romantic vibes. He tells a story very well. His voice is great. The writing is very strong, and it very much reflects the solid material that we got from the Lessons single. Lessons is still the best song here, but it's not the only great song here. It's a win for our boy and one of the better R&B releases of the year so far. Next up is Ransom, No Rest for the Wicked. Look at that album cover. Nightmare fuel player. But I love Ransom because you know what he's going to give you every time. Bars on bars on bars on bars. And whereas that might be intimidating to some younger fans who like more moany, incomprehensible stuff, I don't know why y'all like this. I mean, it's hip hop. I want to hear the lyrics. Anyway, y'all do you, and we do us when we listen to Ransom. I like this project because even though Ransom is very aggressive in his bars almost always, this project has a nice soulfulness to it. I love that he's incorporated some of these samples and gives it a different feel from his usual releases. So this one, if you love some bars and you love them delivered fast-paced and with aggression, kind of hip-hop I came up on, this is the project for you. Next up is Alex Isley and Jack Dine, Marigold. If you heard that name, Isley, if it rings a bell, la da 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 da. Yep, it's that Isley. She is the daughter of Ernie Isley, my man with the guitar, and of course the niece of Mr. Biggs and everybody else. The Isley brothers is her family, so R&B is in my girl's DNA. Marigold, she teams with Jack Dine, and the reason why this album works is because it just has this melodic flow to it. If you remember R&B like your parents used to throw on Saturday mornings when you clean up the house, this is what we're thinking of here, a complete soulful listening experience. And as we were just talking about on the Soul and Stereo Cypher on Facebook, make sure you go there and check that out. Again, this is a chance to hear R&B as it was in the face of just music that is very soulful, very loving, as we talked about with Eric Roberson. Kind of a throwback sound, but not stale in a sense that she's able to bring a youthful exuberance to it. So while it's not as hard-hitting as a lot of R&B today, that's just kind of like faux hip-hop, this is more soul in the way that has come from generations past. But again, don't worry, it's not outdated because it fits perfectly for 2022. I think Alex is a star on the rise, so keep your eye on my girl and check this album out. Up next is a West Side Gun, Peace Fly God. Hey, yo, you know what to get from every Griselda release, especially West Side Gun. This dude is just gonna be giving you ridiculous metaphors. Those And the way he does it, it's funny because you hear it, and if you were to read his lyrics on paper, you would say, this man needs to be institutionalized. What is he talking about? But it flows so well in the context of every song and every album. Shout out to Stove God Cooks because he steals the show every single time. Great production here. And while I might not like it as much as Pray for Paris, I think it's a pretty good step up. West Side Gun, I really fell in love with him with Supreme Blientele. That might be my first Griselda album that I was really like, these guys are great. And he hasn't topped that yet. And a lot of his releases since have kind of been up and down. I would put this one more at the upper tier. Not quite beating that one, but certainly one that's notable. Griselda don't miss. They just keep coming. Next up is Shay Noir, Food for Thought. Shay really got some love on social media in 2020 when she had her collabo with Apollo Brown, As God Intended. It's a great release. It's over there on the wall somewhere. If I thought ahead of time, I would have pulled it out for you. Yes, I got the physical of that one. But this EP, Food for Thought, kind of fits the theme of just hunger. And my girl is still hungry for success. In an era where so many female MCs are just watered down into one category, and I don't want to get in that debate. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know the category. When everyone is in that category, there's a whole other category of female MCs who are just doing incredible work. And what I've always said about female rappers is that many of them are better than their male counterparts because they have to be. To be taken seriously in this industry, you have to be better than the best. She is better than most male MCs out. And this EP proves it. It's very tight, not very long, but very tight, and runs the concepts very well. When she's talking about either her hunger for success or just ways to satiate all of the things that are going around her, staying focused on her goal, you really feel her drive. And that's what always brings me back to her music. She's great at telling stories, and she's great at putting her heart on her sleeve. Shay Noir, to me, is one of those artists that's next up. I'm not sure she'll ever get the mainstream attention that she deserves because she don't fit in that other box. But for those of us who appreciate lyricism and storytelling, this is an album that's worth waiting for. Next on the list, we got Mahalia, Letter to Your Ex. Like the old church folks say, back in my church, they always say, it ain't gotta be long to be strong, baby. And they're just saying that when the preacher takes too long with their long-winded sermons. And this is another case of that being true because this 5-track EP, I mean, there's just 15 minutes, but there's so much here because Mahalia's pen is so impressive. She is flipping some classic hip-hop and R&B tracks, putting a new spin on it, and she's telling the story of a breakup in a way that feels fresh, but also very well written. You know, you probably heard your boy complain a lot. I know, me complaining, can you believe it? But yes, I've complained a lot about music today just being too one note, sounding like Instagram captions. Everybody's mad. I have no problem singing about breakup and heartbreak, y'all, because that is the foundation of R&B. But it's just done in such a lazy, pedestrian way. This is a different type of storytelling where she talks about her breakup, and then at the end, she wraps it up with the twist. And she talks about, well, I won't spoil that because I feel like it's spoiling the movie a little bit. I like how the last track tells a different side of the story of a breakup. So this is R&B that, again, it might not be the Eric Roberson, Alex Isley soulful vibe. There is soul here, but this one feels a little bit more of a bridge between current and kind of classic legacy sounds. This one's a little bit closer to the middle. So it might be a little bit more acceptable to younger ears who won't be like, oh, this sounds too old. Don't sound old at all. It's fresh, it's new, and it's worth your time. Next up, King Crooked, Joel Ortiz, The Rise and Fall of Slaughterhouse. I'll be honest, y'all. I was not looking forward to this one. As many of you know, the mighty Slaughterhouse crumbled a few years ago. It just went down the tubes. And when I heard about this EP and I thought about it, I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear a bunch of dirty laundry being thrown around. Like, that's what Twitter's for. Just go on some horrible YouTube interview show if you want to bash your peers. And there's a little bit of that here, but there isn't. I should not have questioned two elite MCs like Crooked and Joel, because they're able to take their experiences and tell their story in a compelling way. So this isn't just them bashing Shady or bashing Royce or bashing Joe Budden. Not that at all. They just tell a frank story of how Slaughterhouse went from this and went to this. They're very frank, they're very open and honest, but most of all, the beats hit and the bars hit. That's all I'm here for. So they take a personal experience and tell a great story around it using great music. That's hip hop in its essence. That's what hip hop should be, and they do that. So yeah, I know some people might come into this with a weird taste in their mouths, especially if you're fans of the other members, but don't worry about that. This is their story. They're telling it authentically, and that, my friends, is what hip hop is supposed to be. Next on the list, my girl Lady Ray, Piece of Me. Now, if you're a Soul and Stereo, if you're a true Soul and Stereo head or a true fan, you know how much I love Nicole Ray. And it's not just because she's a VA girl, although it might have a little bit to do with it. Shout out to VA. But her debut is one of my favorite albums of all time, and I don't even know why. I don't know why I love that album so much, but I absolutely love it. If I was being biased, Ed, it would get 17 stars. But if I'm unbiased, I can't give it that much. But I love that album so much. I think she's an incredible talent, and she never got her due. Under her Lady Ray persona, she done grown up on us, y'all, and she is a woman flexing. I love the sound of this album. It is inspired by 60s soul, and it's very authentic to it. But kind of like Mahalia and like Alex Isley as well, even though it's not current sounding R&B, it is reflected in the way it's written and its experiences and the way it's presented. So even though the sounds are vintage and classics, the actual tone, delivery, and storytelling is modern. So you get a piece of that nostalgia that tips its hat to the legendary days, but also gives it focus that makes it relevant today. Plus, my girl just be blowing. She just be blowing. Great production. Some of my favorite songs of the year are on this set. Make sure you check it out. Another of those gems that just flew under the radar this year, but it's definitely worth your playlist. I ain't gonna tell you wrong. I'm not gonna steer you wrong, player. Check it out. And here's one that probably doesn't surprise anybody. Pusha T is Almost Dry. Shout out to VA, always getting a bunch of love on these lists. Pusha's album is one of the most celebrated of the year, and for good reason. Pusha is kind of like Griselda, kind of like Ransom too, and you always know what you're going to get from every project. That man is going to tell his coattails. I don't care what it is. He's going to talk about it. And he does it so well and so compellingly that it never gets old, at least not to me, because he tells these stories in a different way. So even though the content might sound the same, the stories are told differently. In this case, he's got Kanye West, his boy, and the Neptunes, his boys, two worlds coming together from his past to make this album stand out so strongly. As always, the production is solid. And as always, those bars are off the chain because it's Push. The only thing that I could say that might be a negative, as I said, is it's well-worn ground. We've heard it before, but when we've heard it before at this high level, I don't mind it. Again, one of the best albums of the year, kind of celebrated around pretty much every social media site platform, no matter how suspect, is giving this album its props, and that just shows how great it is. One of the best of the year, no question. Pusha always delivers. Next up is Leia I don't know how you actually say it. Hello, like the phone. I mean, it's the phone. You can see her octopus arms. It's about a phone. But regardless, Leia is one of those artists that just came out of nowhere and blindsided me. When you've been doing this review thing, as long as you're bored, there are a few artists that just pop up and really blow me away just by coming out of left field. And she's one that does it. And to me, she is like the Majin Buu of this R&B game. And why do I say that? Because you can tell that her influences came from the Super Friends. I'm talking Missy, I'm talking Timbaland, I'm talking Aaliyah. She absorbed their powers and became the new version of them. And she does this with the most creative videos I have seen in years. That she also shoots herself, apparently. And production and sounds that are very inspired by those legends. They are, if you listen to the trippy production and the vocal silence, it's very Missy influenced. Some Brandy dashed in there as well. A little Aaliyah dashed in there. But she does it in a way that she's able to storytell about her experiences. And it just sounds so fresh. It's so fresh sounding. And it's weird because she can take a sound from 20 years ago, but still make it sound fresh. That's a testament to that sound of the past, and a testament for her from being able to sample and bring new life. I know there's been a lot of debate on social media lately about sampling being bad, and it makes me laugh as an old head because I remember when our parents were appalled that Lauryn Hill was covering songs from their past, or Puffy was taking beats. And now we're doing the same, and we're like, oh, they're stealing from us. It happens every generation, y'all. Calm down. We are becoming our parents. However, Leia is able to sample, cover, and co-op sounds, but do it in a fresh way, so it's not only paying homage, she's making it her own. This album is a completely different experience, and if you miss the days of picking up an old Timbaland CD in '97 and being completely blown away by the production and the arrangements, this is an album for you. One of my favorites of the year. Another artist to watch. Check out my girl, please. Next up is Phife Dawg Forever. This album, I'm sure, won't get the headlines that a Pusha T or Kendrick Lamar or some of the other big releases of this year gets. But in my opinion, it's the most heartfelt album that we've gotten. Of course, we lost Phife a few years ago, and this album was recorded prior to that. And it's kind of eerie because there are lots of songs here that pay homage to Jay Dilla, who also we lost even years before that. So in an album that pays homage to a hip-hop legend, the album itself has become a homage to a hip-hop legend. It's kind of wild how these things work out. The production is great. He's got an A-list team of guest stars. Redman, we got Rhapsody, we got Tip. People are there to show love for this legend, and it just feels so good. That's what I miss about hip-hop. Old head alert, old head alert. That's what I miss about hip-hop, y'all. It used to be so fun. It wasn't just so sad all the time. All you sad boys are depressing me. And this album feels fun. It feels like a throwback, but most of all, it feels like a celebration from an artist that we love that, in my opinion, we never really celebrated like we should have. Tribe Called Quest is one of the greatest groups of all time. We all know that. But a lot of that celebration always kind of seemed like it fell on QTip. Let's celebrate our boy, and I'm glad to see Phife get his time in the sun. Just wish he was here to smell those flowers. Up next is Tank and the Bangers' Red Balloon. Sometimes you gotta show love to the black women in your life, because my wife was a Tank and the Bangers fan way before y'all were on them. Same thing with Lizzo too. I remember her playing some song about coconut oil years ago, and I'm like, who is this? This is long before y'all got on Lizzo. But the same goes for Tank and the Bangers. This New Orleans-based group is just so much fun. One of the best live shows out today, by the way. Check them out if they're in your area. But this album is exactly what the industry needs. I was just talking a little bit earlier about how dreary and sad boy everything is right now. This isn't. This is adrenaline. This is fun. This is energy. But if you actually listen to the lyrics, there's actually some impressive points being told, some great takes on our world in general. So it's not just music for the sake of it. There's also some thoughtfulness put there. I love Tank. I think she's got the charisma for days and days and days. This album might not be one that was on your radar, but make sure it is. Get that red balloon. Check it out. This is a fun release that's just filled with all types of different genres. We got hip hop, we got funk, we got soul. We've got it all mixed up here in one package. And most of all, it's just a good time. Up next, one of my favorites, Lupe, Fiasco, Drill, Music, and Zion. Y'all know the Lupe story. I talked about this in my review. I feel like Lupe is another one of those artists that a narrative has been written before the story is over. So if you know Lupe, you know how it goes down. His first two albums are two of the best of the 2000s. Incredible. A 5-star album and one that's very, very close to 5 stars. Then we had the controversy with the Lasers album, which was his attempt to go mainstream, and it didn't go as well as we planned, although I will contend that album isn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be. It just was not near the quality of the first two. And after that, a lot of people kind of gave up on him, and especially with a lot of the fallout from that album. And that's not fair, because after that album, he continued to put out great music. Some of it could be a little inconsistent, but more often than not, we got some good stuff. And this album falls into the good stuff category. It's called Drill, Music, and Zion. To me, it should be called Jazz Rap and Zion, because he, kind of like we were talking about Tribe earlier, shout out to them. This album feels a lot like a Tribe album from the early 90s. It's very jazz oriented, and that kind of mellowness gives him space to just go nuts with his storytelling, go nuts with his bars, because lyricism, when it comes down to it, few can beat Lupe Fiasco. Those bars are as sharp as ever. This is a kind of tight release, not too long. A lot of people can learn from that. There are a lot of good albums this year that just was bowled down by bloat. Logic, I'm looking at you. That album would have been almost 4.5 stars if you cut out 15 tracks. But anyway, Lupe doesn't make that mistake. He makes a tight release. He has a story to tell. And in my opinion, Lupe's story is stop giving up on my boy. He's still putting out great music. This album is proof of it. Next up is Vince Staples' Ramona Park, Broke My Heart. I don't know who Ramona is, but man, that's sad. Speaking of sad, I know a lot of people weren't really feeling Vince's album from last year. I liked it. I thought it was one of the better albums of the year, but I know some people felt it was a little, I don't know, it didn't have the vibrancy or fun or energy of kind of the previous releases. Didn't bother me, but this one I think will be a little bit more universally accepted. As you can tell from the title, there's a lot of heartbreak going on, but the energy is a little bit more high than it was the last time. And Vince is one of those artists that he is going to deliver every single time. There is no such thing as a bad Vince album. And he's another artist who puts his heart's on his sleeve. He's going to let you know how he feels about everything. I'm sure you've seen his social media. He has no problem sharing his thoughts. This album reflects that. And there is a huge fan base of Vince fans who just like follow behind every one of that. When it comes to albums, I wouldn't say it's his best, but it is one of his better ones in recent memory. I probably would put it a little bit above last year's album, but again, I like that one too. His consistency continues to reign. He has a story to tell, like most of the albums on this list, and even though the story is kind of depressing, it's still told in a way that's very engaging, and I accept that. Shout out to Vince. Once again, another winner from our guy. Next up is Snoop Dogg, B.O.D.R. Back on Death Row. What do Snoop, what do Michael Jackson, and what do Nas have in common? I'm asking that like I can hear your responses on this video, but I'll tell you. They all suffer from what I call the Illmatic curse, or you can call it the Thriller curse, or you can call it the Doggy Style curse. They all have one album that's just so transcendent that no matter what they do after, people will say, oh, well, it's not as good as Doggy Style. It can't be great. Well, okay. Find all the albums up here that are better than Doggy Style. It'll be like maybe 6. That album is great. And no, Snoop has not beaten it. This album doesn't beat it, but it doesn't take away from the quality that this album has. Back on Death Row, per its name, is a throwback to the early 90s, and it recaptures that sound. And even though Uncle Snoop is getting a little long in the tooth, he looks good for his age, though. The point is, my man still has it. He still has that laid back flow. And even though he's not a lyrical titan as per a Lupe Fiasco, he's able to express himself in just that smooth demeanor, just like silky smooth Snoop with the flow. But he also has bars as well. It's not like there's any lack of those here. This album is fun, not just for its nostalgia, but for able to put new artists on as well and show that Snoop still got he still got some gas in the tank, y'all. And he has no problem flaunting that. I love that Snoop can still give us surprises this deep into his career. And I'll say, this is one of his better albums of all time. And Snoop's got a lot of albums. This one's at the top. Next up is Lucky Day, Candy Drip. That album cover, the ladies love it. To me, it's just sticky. But anyway, we're here to talk about the music. And it's Soul in Stereo. We live by 4 words when it comes to this man. Lucky Day, don't miss. And once again, he doesn't. Now, I will say I was a little nervous about this project at first when I heard some of the singles coming into it. I was like, oh no, we're going to get mainstream Lucky Day. We're going to get trap Lucky Day. Oh, no, Lucky, don't do it to us. Don't stray from your sound to give us, the usual. And even though this one strays a little bit in the mainstream, overall this project, no, is every bit a Lucky project. So don't worry. Don't get turned off. Even though he does, you got to pay the bills. You got to do a little bit of current sounding stuff. He doesn't lose himself. Overall, this is a great project. And those songs that I was a little nervous about work very well in the context of this album. He's able to kind of capture the current sound and twist it a little bit more into something that's a little bit more traditional. And that works because you have an album that therefore kind of, for lack of a better term, pleases both sides, but doesn't abandon either side. And he has enough writing capabilities and some of the production. Ego, I love the production on Ego. The production here is so good and compelling. I know there's been arguments about which album is better. I know it's definitely not his best release, but I think it measures up to his most recent one. It's very different, but I think it connects. So, Candy Drip, Lucky Day. Once again, Lucky Day, don't miss, player. Now, before we run the final albums on this list, we got 2 more left on this list. Let's go and hit some honorable mentions, some ones that I wish we could have got in, we just didn't have time. Producer D Roth, hook us up with them honorable mentions. All right, shout out to those 5. Let's get back to our 2. All right, next up is DJ Premier. Yes, that Primo. Hip Hop 50, Volume 1. Remember when I talked a little bit earlier about the greatness of short but sweet albums? This is another case of that. I don't care that there are only 5 songs here. I know y'all are used to 35 songs. And the irony is, you want 35 songs. You only pick 5 good songs out anyway, and you ignore the other 25. So how about you just give us 5 good songs? That's what he did here. And these 5 songs are better than pretty much any other song I've heard this year. So I think DJ Premier is on it. And it works because DJ Premier, of course, one of the greatest producers of all time, when you get a Primo beat, it's an honor. And most artists know that if you're on a Primo beat, you got to raise your game. And every artist here raised their game. Remy Ma, who I need y'all to stop sleeping on, absolutely goes ballistic on her track. And Rhapsody alongside with her, just as hard, killing it. You got this weird art couple of Lil Wayne and Slick Rick, kill it. You got Run the Jewels, kill it. Nas, one of the best songs I've heard this year on this track. And of course, there's just so much more. Shout out to Joy. Almost forgot about Joy. He brings it too. Can't wait for his new album. The fact is, when it comes to DJ Premier doing all of this stuff, it always brings it back to one thing, the essence of hip hop. The essence of hip hop is just bringing together people who have stories to tell and putting it on a dope beat. That's that simple. That's all it is. This album thrives on its simplicity, and it's great. DJ Premier is timeless. And now we got one album left, and I bet y'all can guess which one it is. D Roth, what was that? Producer, stop playing. Stop playing in my face. You know good as well that album was not the one on our list. I'm tired of players telling me, oh, that Drake album, it's a great summer kickback. It's a great summer playlist. Oh, you can throw it at your summer party, your summer slumber parties, maybe. Nobody listening to that obituary playlist at a function where you're trying to turn up on. Can we get the real ass album player? That's it. Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers. This album was 5 years in the making. And in the music industry, especially in current day music industry, where headlines fly in and out of your timelines in like 30 seconds, 5 years away is an eternity. And in that time away, boy, was Kendrick Lamar's credibility questioned. Oh, he's lost it. If he doesn't give us an album in a year, he's just over. It's over for him. It's like, what? How do we have a timeline on greatness, on skill? Like, there's no timeline to come out with an album. I want quality. And he took his time and he gave us an album that every bit matched the quality we expected. This album speaks to its times because in his absence, as I said, there were a lot of people questioning. When there was a lot of social unrest, people were screaming, where is Kendrick Lamar? If he isn't speaking on this right now, he has lost all credibility. Well, in this album, he says, Kendrick is not your savior. He is here to present his life, faults and all, to an audience. And whereas sometimes that's celebrated as a thought leader, sometimes it's not. At the end of the day, he's a rapper with the same issues and thoughts and concerns and flaws as the rest of us. He's human. And that's the theme that goes with this album. And because it's Kendrick Lamar, of course, it's some of the most incredible storytelling you've ever heard. Mother I Sober is just another level of artistry. And then there's a few songs in there that I know make people feel uncomfortable, like Cry Together. But when you look beyond just feeling bad, listen to the story that's being told. Look at the relationships between man and woman that are presented in a faulty relationship. That's what this is about. It's not an album to make you feel good. It's not an album to make you dance. It's an album to reflect what's going on internally in our times. I haven't done this in almost 10 years, but this is one of the albums that I give the patented 5-star review here at Soul and Stereo. It's been a long time since I've given one. This one deserves it. An incredible release, in my opinion, and no, it's not recency bias. It's one of the best albums Kendrick has ever released so far. Hopefully we'll get more to come. And easily, even though this list ain't ranked, I'll go ahead and say it's the album of the year right now. Good luck beating this one. So that's it. 20 of the best albums of 2022 so far. I know there's a bunch of stuff I left off the list. Shout out to Conway the Machine. Shout out to Sid. Shout out to Lloyd Banks, Denzel Curry, Robert Glasper. It's so much stuff. Maybe I'll get a bigger list when we do the final list at the end of the year, and I can show everything some love because there's some good stuff out there. But now it's your turn. What are your favorite albums of 2022? Let us know below. What did I miss? What did I hype up that you hate? This is your opportunity to speak out. Go ahead and wild out in the comments. Actually, I was going to say don't wild out, but maybe you should, because if you wild out, the more comments you get, YouTube will consider this video a success, so it'll push it more in the algorithm and show up more in people's feeds. So yeah, let all the bloodshed reign in the comments. I don't care. Kill each other. Yes, I want to be selfish. Let this video blow up. But that's just me. Anyway, this edition of the Soul and Stereo Sessions is a wrap. Play on.